Okay, I'll start. So, hi again. Today, I'm going to navigate you through MaxQuant Viewer tutorial. So, MaxQuant Viewer is the model in MaxQuant which enables mass spectrometry data visualization. And it's a very powerful tool. It can help you explore your data, check the quality of your mass spectrometry runs, look after the peptides that you are interested in details. But it also can be quite intimidating if you don't know what you're doing. So I hope that by the end of this tutorial, you will know MaxQuant Viewer by heart, will become your trustful friend in your research. And we'll start by uploading data. You would need data that was processed by MaxQuant to use the full potential of MaxQuant Viewer, though you can load just unprocessed raw data to see some things, but we will just load the MQPAR file. You can see, this is the same data that Dima showed you during the DDA tutorial, and it was already processed. Here, this is combined folder. So we will take MQPAR, and again, we'll load it. The files are existing. So now we go to visualization tab. And yeah, before I continue, I want to mention that as usual with tutorials, you don't need to follow me, and I would encourage you to not follow me because that will distract you. So just look after my steps. They are also described in the assignment devoted to viewer. I personally try to make sure that you will be able to reproduce all the steps because they have detailed instructions. And if anything, this video would also be, or this tutorial would also be on YouTube. So you would be able to rewatch it if needed. And now we have our data loaded. So there are three main sections in the MaxQuant Viewer window. The first one is the heat map, which shows you the retention time, M over Z plane, and also the intensity values are color-coded. The greener the point is, the higher the intensity at this point. The second section is some secondary plots, which we will look into in details later. And the third section is for output tables. So those are the same output tables that you saw in the lecture that Carlo did. And basically, this is another way to look into them besides Excel and PCOs. And it has an advantage that it's linked to the plotting machinery in the viewer. And they are also interlinked between each other. So let's start with output tables. They are grouped into 4 groups: scans, identifications, features, and metadata. We are most interested in the identifications. So as I said, those tables are linked to the plots. So for example, if we go to peptides, we can choose a row with peptide that we like, for example, this one, and press display best spectrum button. So what it will do, it will locate this peptide on the heat map. But what's more interesting for us is this MSMS spectra tab in the middle part of the window. So let's go there and wait for some time until it loads. Yes, and now we have here the fragmentation spectra of this peptide. So we have Y and B peaks. We have also the sequence of this peptide down here. together with ion series that were identified. As you can see, these series are pretty full, so that's nice. On this plot, we also have neutral losses if we want them. And we can also export this plot by pressing Export Graphics button. It will open dialog window where you can navigate to the place where you want to save it and enter the name of the file, choose type. I will choose PDF as default and press save. It will be exported from MaxQuant to use somewhere else. Good. So actually, this button, Display by Spectrum, is now activated. You can see that the color is different. So if we go to some other peptide, this will render the plot in U to display this peptide. And so if you want to go through the different rows of this table, it's best to switch this mode off, because otherwise that would take a lot more time. So if we turn it off, we can just go to some other rows without needing to redraw the picture anew. So good. What's next? Let's look into MS1 data visualization. And the main tool here would be the heat map. We can display MS1 spectra for a given slice of attention time by choosing this slice on the ladder here. So I'm not sure how good. No, you can see like this red thing displays what retention time is selected at the moment. And go and look into MS spectra at this time. So next, let's add colors to this plot because we can display different features. And so for now, no features are selected to show, but we can either show multiplets. This is for MS1 labeled data. This will color features that exist in multiplets. We can just show isotope patterns. This is probably the most useful one. Or we can show charge pairs. This is for features that exist as several charge states. Let's do isotope patterns and wait a bit until it redraws the picture. By the way, you can see that there is both coordinates of amyloid and attention time here and here. And this is because we can zoom in into this plot. You need to be in the zoom mode to do this, but this one is activated by default. And to zoom in, we can just draw a rectangle over the piece of the heat map that we're interested in and go there. And now you can see that in the dimensions in the upper part of the picture and on the right, there is a box that actually shows at which section of the whole values available for us we're currently looking. So yeah, is this just this section? Here is the whole range, and this section is colored. Okay, let's go a little bit closer. This takes some time, and it may look like it's frozen, but it's actually not. And please wait until it finishes its job. Don't confuse the viewer with multiple requests. So now we see the isotope patterns closer. What we can also show here is the places where peptides were collected for acquisition, for fragmentation. To do that, we press this button, MSMS. Also, again, yeah. Now we have these things, and I will turn off the isotope patterns for now, so we could see them more clearly. Oh, yes. So now we have these squares and crosses. Squares is the is to denote places where acquisition happened and peptide was identified. The crosses is when the features were not identified. So let's go closer to some feature. For example, to this one. So zoom in. Okay, now we see it more clearly. So now we can use another mode of MaxQuant viewer. It's select mode. Okay, yeah. So select mode will so now drawing the rectangle will not zoom in, but will select the feature, the isotope pattern that will be inside the rectangle. So let's I've come into some unfortunate part of the heat map that don't have nice things. Yeah, this one. Let's go to that one. Okay. So I will select this as the pattern. And now I have the spectra of this, of the peptide that was identified at this place. I have its sequence, its ions, its fragment ions, and also the acquisition window that was used to gather the peptide. So now we can go and see what other plots we can get from the middle part. Let's go to 3D viewer. And here we would need to refresh the plot because it will not render automatically. It's quite computationally intense and we don't want to trigger it on accident. But we refreshed. Now we see the same part of the heat map, but in 3D. We can either drag it to look around, or we can use these things here. But as you can see, there are two actually isotope patterns here, and maybe we don't want it. We want just look closely to one of them. So to do that, we would need to redefine the window of image, and we have the define window mode. As you can already see this big red rectangle around all the area here, and this is the current window. But we define the new one only here. Yes, so this is a new window. Let's trigger refresh. And now we see the pattern isolated. Okay. So what else do we have here? We have chromatogram. And there are two modes of chromatogram. It's total ion chromatogram and mass traces. TIC is probably makes more sense to see on the zoomed out, completely zoomed out plot. So let's press full zoom to return to the full heat map. You can see that it displays all the acquisition places. Let's turn this off. Okay. So let's refresh the ion chromatogram, and we can see the full TIC here. And to showcase the mass traces, let's select some as the pattern which has a nice big intensity. So another thing that you can do with these output tables is sorting by column. So we go to the intensity column, sort it descending, go find some good. Let's see what's going on here. And press show in map. So this will send us directly to this as the pattern and place the window around it. Oh, yeah, it's not very good. See how this one looks. For now, do you have any questions?
The spectra that is represented here is for one file, or are all the 6 files that you selected together?
Yes, that's a good question. I will show the mass traces, and then I will discuss this in. So,
Thank you.
Mass traces. Yeah. Well, we can see basically the elution profile for this peptide, and it looks a bit weird, but we see that isotopes are co-eluting. So now let's, yes, and there are also, so basically each one of these plots is displayed because MaxQuant placed these ticks here. So each one of them is corresponding to the isotope peak. Okay, and let's go, yeah. So regarding your question, you can choose the file. This is a single file. This is a single raw file, and you can choose the file that you want to look at using this drop-down list. And we can also look into a feature across all files by using multi-map view. So we go to this section and trigger refresh again, because it's same as 3D view, it does not refresh automatically. And now we can see the coordinates, the detention time M/Z coordinates that like the view over this part of the plot in each file. Yes. So the last major thing that I want to show is protein sequence. And to see that, we go to protein groups and select a protein group that we would like to know more about. So for example, let's look at this one. And press show peptide sequences and go to show protein sequences and go to protein sequences. So here, I'll try to make it bigger. We have actually the sequence of this protein and some modification sites, domains, and color-coded, there are identified peptides. So if we choose protein group that contains several proteins, all of them will be displayed, all of the sequences, again, with identified peptides. And we can also use buttons to look into the spectra corresponding to this peptide. So for example, we can show these peptides in peptide table by pressing this button. When we go to peptides table, we can see that it selected all the peptides corresponding to this protein group and placed them to the top. So now we can look into them more thoroughly. Same, we can select one peptide and press show on the MSMS table. Go to MSMS table. Now we see all the spectra corresponding to this peptide. So these tables are interconnected, and you can explore them using these buttons. There are a lot of buttons here, actually. But if they don't fit the screen, they will go to this drop-down list, and you can find them there. And so that's basically all that I wanted to show.